Hello, and welcome to Let's Chat Death, Dying, Funerals, and Grief with me, your host, Anna Bushell. Every month, I welcome a special guest to discuss all things death, dying, funerals, and grief. Not the most light-hearted topics, I know, but that's the whole point of this podcast, to shine a light on these often seen as taboo subjects with a view to hopefully dispel some fears and encourage others to be brave and have these conversations. For this episode, I'm so excited to be welcoming Ishani from India. Welcome, Ishani.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. And like you said, it's not the most light-hearted conversation, but I feel like it's such an important conversation to have because we've been, putting this under the rug, talking about death, talking about grief. And in this world that we live in, we are all grieving something or the other. Either we are grieving somebody who we have lost to the other side or the past versions of us. So I'm so honored to be part of this conversation. Thank you for having
Fantastic.
me.
Thank you. As you've said, one of the reasons for this podcast is to explore how other cultures deal with death and dying and the rituals that they have for funerals. So tell me about what happens when someone in your family dies.
Yeah, so I'll give a quick context of where I am coming from and what am going to speak about today. I'm from India, like you said. I'm also a Hindu, so that's my religion and that's how I've been brought up. And Hinduism is a very vast religion. It was more so a philosophy of life more than a religion, but over the years, it has become a religion where there are certain set of rules and regulations to follow. Again, I'm not an expert on Hinduism, and because it's so diverse, people from across India follow different rules, different ways to mourn, to grieve. So in my life, the first death that I saw, that I witnessed, happened last year in 2025 in September,
Okay.
of my Nana ji, who is my mother's father. And what I saw was that we don't really celebrate life. I've seen that certain cultures celebrate the death, right? That this person has moved, and so we are celebrating life. And I've seen them giving speeches about how the person was and whatnot. But we actually mourn the passing away. So there is a 12 to 13 days of mourning period where people are wearing, like, they'll do everything that is opposite to the normal, which I mean by is like, for to give you an example, we will wear the clothes outside, like the so for example, this is the proper way of wearing the clothes, right? So they'll be wearing it opposite. So
Okay.
the t-shirt would be worn outside, and like the opposite way, where you will see the stitches, which and
Inside out, we call it.
inside out. Yes, that's the word.
Okay.
That's the word I was looking for. So you'll be wearing coat, all the clothes inside out. You'll not use any soaps or shampoos and this and that. Like for the 13 to 12 to 13 days. Then again, depending on the region and culture and the kind of um again, like, it's so diverse. I've so for us it was a 12-day mourning period, and I went to another a friend's father's passing away, and they were following this 13 days mourning period, and they were following the same rules but for 13 days.
Right.
And something like, so we do have a lot of customs and rituals in India where I don't know if you've heard or your audience has heard about Havan, which is like a big, there's a big puja, there's a big prayer that happens,
Mm.
where it's a purification ritual in a way, where we have logs of wood and we put fire on them, and it says that it purifies the entire house. So we have that kind of things. I mean, there are different ways, like depending on how religious you are, or not even religious, how much do you want to follow this one ritual.
Okay.
And in our household, after that morning, my Nanaji's family would not be able to do that certain kind of prayer for a year, because that's the morning
Right.
period. But I went to this other, like I said, the friend's father who passed away. They had the Havan on the 13th day. So even in India, being from the same religion, we have different ways to mourn, to grieve, and I found it very interesting. And yeah, I would love to know how you also across. I mean, I am looking forward to all the conversations that you are having. Because I'm always interested to know how people are celebrating life and celebrating death as well, because I feel like it's also, I mean, this is Hindu philosophy, right? You're getting liberated from this Moh Maya, from this world that is,
Mm,
and also in this time and age, which is Kali Yuga, where there's so much evil. So I find it as my grandfather is getting liberated, but for us, but for the human in me, I'm still grieving, right? I
mm,
remember his voice, and I start to cry sometimes, and we also cannot celebrate festivals for a year after somebody passes away in our
okay.
house. No Holi, no Diwali. And if you know anything about Indians, about Hindus, we have so many festivals. Like
Yeah.
literally every single month we have a festival. We had a festival like 2 days ago. But because we are in the mourning period, we won't be celebrating any of that.
Right.
So only after a year we'll have a puja. Again, we'll have a havan, that purification practice, and then we can start going to the temples even. So we can't even go to the temples. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, and depending on again how religious you are, how many rules can you follow, you'll either follow some or you'll not follow anything. Like for my friend, they had the 13 days, the mourning period, and then I feel like they'll be able to go to any temples, they'll have their celebrations and whatnot. But for
Mm,
us, I feel like because my Nana ji and my Nani, which is my grandmother and grandfather, they are very religious, they were very religious. So they are following it to the T. Like whatever has been told to them by the priest, they are following everything to the T. Like
okay.
even for example, we had Holi. So Holi is a celebration of again spring coming, and
Mm,
there's a beautiful story about Holika Dahan and whatnot. I don't want to go into all of that, but Holi is a big festival in India. It's a festival of colors, of joy, of nature. Bringing coming into life again, but they did not celebrate it. We celebrated it because it's not my father's father, it's my mother's father, so the family is different.
okay.
So we can celebrate everything, but they cannot. But
Right.
because my mother was not in the mood, and of course we also didn't want to celebrate. We didn't celebrate much, but there's like certain sweets and delicacies that are made. So my mother ensured that we do that because it's so complex. Because then, because my mother is now part of my family, my father's family, right? So if we don't do those things, then it becomes like it's a problem in my father's family side then, right? Because it's
Okay.
also we are not celebrating what we already have, and she's not part of that family anymore. So it's again patriarchal setting. Of course, everybody in the world follows the patriarchal system. So now for us, for our family, she had to make certain things, and so she did make those delicacies that are made for Holi. And one of the most like the widespread thing that we do and eat during Holi is called gujia. Okay, it's a
Mm,
very specific kind of. Have you had samosa?
yes. Yeah.
Yes. So it's like samosa, but it's sweet. So inside it,
Ah,
there's a different stuffing. It's not potato, it's not paneer or something else, but it's sweet. So I don't know how to define it in English because it's a very specific Indian thing that we use. So again, like it's very sweet. And for my nani, she can't eat, or my nani's family, they can't eat anything from any like they can't have water from anybody else's house. So even in my house, when my nani comes, she brings her
mm,
own water bottle because water is very pure, and it has to be from from her own house. So
right.
my mother, when she made that gujia, for us, she made it in water. So, like, there's a dough that is made first for
Yeah.
the covering. So, for that dough, when yeah, for the kneading, she used water for us, which is generally how it's made. But for my
Mm,
nan, because she can't have water outside from any
mm,
outside house, she used milk because that's pure. And she can use milk from outside. Like, I don't necessarily understand the logic sometimes, but that's how but that's how it was. And then she made that gujia, and then my nanny was able to eat it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if we start to talk about these rules, there's so many, and I'm not even sure like how many of these are there.
Mm.
But to go into the specifics, there is one. So, like I said, in India is so diverse, and then even Hinduism has its own different kind of, depending on the book that you're following, because we have so many different books.
Right.
You get to have a different kind of understanding about how to mourn, even. But there is
Mm.
one specific book called the Garud Puran, which has a lot of things written down about death and what happens to the soul after it leaves the body. And according to our priest, it takes a year for the body to have either moksha, or like liberation from the death
Right.
and the cycle, or they get into a new body.
Okay.
So they receive the new body after a so all the sacrifices that we are making, that my nanny's family is making, is because for that soul to either have liberation or to go into a beautiful new cycle. So all
Got
the
you.
sacrifices that they're doing is going to go to that, to my nanaji's soul, so
Yeah.
that he has a better life. Or we are all hoping for liberation, because who want, like, as they say, who wants to come back to this cycle of death and rebirth, death and rebirth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. I mean, it is very complex, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
It is. I'm still like, I keep wrapping my head around why do have we have to so the one big thing that I really dislike is that my nanny, she has diabetes, so she needs to eat at certain point, and she needs to eat certain things, and she can't eat a lot of things, right? She's diabetic. So because of her insulin levels, we have to really be very cautious of what she's eating and not. But because of all this, because she's grieving right now, and because of all these rules, sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, because she is so strict with all of it, she hampers her own health because
Right.
she's not eating on time. I think they can only eat, I'm not too sure, but they can only eat twice. There's something like that also. They can only eat twice a day. So in the
Mm.
morning, at night, and in between, she just have like tea, or I think, yeah, just tea.
Yeah.
So because of that, her insulin levels are fluctuating like anything. It goes to 400
Mm.
and 500. So she's taking insulin injections every single day, twice a day. So that makes
Okay.
me worried for her, because she is alive, right? And
Mm.
I know she is grieving, and we can't say a lot of things, because she also feels like her only support system has gone, because my Nanaji was the pillar of her strength, and now he's gone. So she feels sad, she cries every single day, and she feels like her identity, because again, Indian society, not just Indian society, I think it's everywhere, and because they had a loving relationship, she
Mm.
misses that bond. But again, as I was saying, Indian society, she did not have a career. Left her, she was a teacher, she left her teaching job for my nanaji because he was in the army, so she had to move a lot. So
Okay.
she left all of that, and now her identity was intricately defined by the mother and the wife she was,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
because it's like her identity is also lost, and
Yeah.
now she's not. So she's also grieving that. And now, if we start to say something like take care of your own health, even that becomes like, the- I mean, I have nothing to offer kind of a situation it becomes for her.
Mm.
It's a very tricky situation, and that is the thing that I don't like, where we are, of course, we have to probably do the things that are required by the custom, by the by whatever is asked of us for my
Yeah.
Nanaji liberation. But also, in a way, he's liberated, and we have to also take care of the person who is alive, which is my nanny. But because of all these rituals, we are not able to really help her be
Mm.
healthy, right? She's
Yeah.
always dealing with emotional loss,
Mm.
and she's dealing with her spiritual loss as well, like identity loss. But
Yeah.
now our physical health is also getting affected because of these rituals. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to share that because this is something that I keep struggling with. Like, how do we maintain a balance of following
Mm,
these rituals, but also ensuring that the person who is going through this difficult time is supported in all the manners that we can at least provide from our side.
exactly. Yeah, I can appreciate the conflict there because you want the best for her,
Yeah,
especially at a time when she's mourning.
yeah.
So, in terms of the funeral itself, how does that work? I don't know what if you know much about what we do in the UK, but we have the choice to for for them to be either buried or cremated, and it's a 30-minute service at the crematorium or by the graveside, and then people tend to have what we call a wake, so that's where you might go back to a pub or a restaurant or someone's house, and you there's food available for the mourners, and you sort of share your memories of the person, but that's pretty well much it. But what's it like where you are? What kind of process does that look like?
And again, I mean, everything that I know from the movies, right? Like I've seen the funerals and all of that, and I'm pretty sure that it's not the exact or the right version of how actually funerals work or how what happens during funerals, because sometimes they just like it becomes like a very weird situation what they show in movies and serials. Anyway, what we do and what I saw was that when my nanaji passed away, because he passed away in a different, because he was hospitalized in a different city, so for him to come, so we don't bury our the bodies, we cremate them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are like Muslims and Christians, they bury the body, but
Mm.
Hindus, at least I don't exactly know about the Sikhs, but Hindus cremate the body, like all the Hindus, even though we are so diverse, so we have crematorium grounds. And when he came back, his body came back. So there is again a process that happens. The priest comes. There's purification of the body that happens, which means that he's going to get wrapped in a pure or a new cloth. And
Yeah.
if it's a woman and she's married, then she's going to be decorated, like she'll have all her jewel, not all but some jewelry on her.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, so she's going to be adorned with jewelry, adorned with new clothes or like beautiful clothes, and then she's going to be buried in that. Anything that he loved or she loved, they're going to put that in the with the body. Like they'll tie
Yeah.
it up, something like that, so that they
Yeah.
take it up with them. So it happened. He died on 28th of September, and then 29th is when his body, 28th evening is when, night is when his body came here.
Yeah.
But because there is particular timing for us to cremate the body even, so it could only happen the next day in the morning. So in the morning, everybody had come to pay their tributes, and then they went. And there's no celebration. Like I said, there's no celebration as such of the dead, right? So there was
Okay.
no food, no gathering, nothing like that. It's only people who were coming. They were coming to just cry with us, basically, and
Right.
pay their condolences. There was nothing that like that. But on the 12th or the 13th day, depending on the cycle that you follow, we follow the 12-day cycle. My friend's father had a 13-day mourning period. So
Yeah.
on that day we have food. So and also that
Okay.
food need to be very sattvic. So we have in Ayurveda, and again, not sure how much you know about that, but there's tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. Sattvic is basically without onion, garlic. There's also so many rules, but like you can't have brinjal, you can't have radish, you can't have like there are lots. So it's like very pure, like not, I mean, pure is a, again we can go deeper into the definitions of pure,
More
but
restricted.
restricted food. So it's
Yeah.
sattvic to, I mean, people who, if you Google it, you'll understand what sattvic food is. So we
Mm,
have just plain sattvic food, and that is what we do on the 13th or the 12th day. And then yeah, and even the family that is mourning, like my nani's family, for the 12 days, they don't have any spices in their food. They're only eating once a day, and that too again sattvic food. Not even sattvic food, they could only eat, yeah, sorry, yeah, only sattvic food. And even so, on the 13th day, it was for others, like it was like a, I wouldn't call it a party, but in a way, a party where people were
mm,
coming to pay condolences as well as have food, which was
mm.
made by somebody outside of the family, but the family couldn't eat it because
Right.
you cannot eat outside for the period of 1 year.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's that big, and people, the person who cremates, it needs to be a boy, like a man or a boy, uh, or a male, basically.
Mm.
And the one who cremates has to follow more rules than the rest of the family. So my mother's brother, my mamaji, who cremated the body, he's I think he's only eating once the entire year. So he's only going to eat once, one meal a day, the
Oh,
entire.
okay. Right.
So he has to follow that. Yeah. So
Mm,
there are different, like depending on the your capacity to even do these things.
mm,
Yeah, there are a lot of rules. I don't think a lot of people are following everything, but yeah,
mm.
this is what is happening.
So
Um,
it's
and
different.
towards when the sorry when the
No,
one
it's
year is
okay.
completed, again there'll be something like that happens on the 12th or 13th day, where somebody else will make the food, and there'll be like people will come to pay tribute
Mm.
uh, for that. Yeah, and we also give money, I think, on the 12th or 13th day. Again, and basically they are also giving something for it to go to the soul.
Okay. Right.
It need not be a lot of money, like 10, 50 rupees or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if what happens if you have another death in the family within that year? Does that like
Elongate.
yeah,
Yes,
so it starts again from that moment. The year starts from that point.
exactly. So
Right.
so it happened in my family, and it's also, it's not just the close relative, it's like all the blood relations, and depending on how far you can go, you'll have to follow that. So because I come from a very religious background, let's just say that my family tends to go to the village level. So for example, in the village, if somebody dies and they are like a cousin of my father, or a cousin of or a second or third cousin even, we are
Mm,
going to follow, and there are rules for depending on how close you are. So if it's a
mm.
third cousin, you'll have to follow like a 12-day mourning or a 5-day mourning period. If it's a second cousin, then there's certain thing. And if it's a first cousin, then you'll have to again do the 1 year, right?
Okay.
So my last to last year, there was my father's I think, yeah, cousin. He passed away, and in 6 months, his mother also passed away. So that person who passed away, his mother also passed away.
Right.
So then, for now 1.5 years, we
Mm.
didn't go to any temple,
Okay.
even though it was not a direct relation, but it was like my father's brother's kid.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it happened. We didn't follow every rule now, but we followed that rule where we did celebrate our festivals also, but we left the first festival after the death for both
Okay.
the passing away, and then we left, and we didn't visit any temple. And now we can, because I'm a female, right? I'm a woman, and I'm going to go to another family, so I could go to
Right.
temple. But my
Okay.
mother and father and my brother
Yeah.
could not.
Can't.
So yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Um,
It's tricky, very complex.
I know, but this is why it's good to have these conversations to gain, some sort of understanding. Um,
But I just wanted to point out my father, because my mother, and I I feel like I'm very, very lucky to live in a household where there's no discrimination between, because there are a lot of families where there's still discrimination between you are a boy and you're a girl, and we didn't
Mm.
have that kind of upbringing, thankfully. So my father, when my mother's father passed away, my nanaji passed away, my father said that you decide however you want to do this, right? Whatever you want to follow, not follow, it's up to you. I'm not going to say anything. So there are families where if this happens, the person, like my mother lost her father, it's a big deal, it's a void that can
Mm.
never be fulfilled. So even then she'll have to celebrate, do everything because she's required to. But my father said, it's on you, like you tell us if you want to do anything, if you tell, like whatever you decide is going to happen. And she said that I don't want to celebrate. Just because I'm married does not mean that he is not my father, right?
Mm.
And I'm going to follow everything that my brothers are following. So yeah, whatever my mother says, in that respect, we follow that, but it's not the same in every family.
Right, right. Okay. Here in the UK, we tend to, and you mentioned this at the beginning, that we don't really like to talk about death and dying. I mean, to be fair, who does? Because it's sad, isn't it? It's not very nice. So is that similar to India? Is it a topic that's really quite taboo?
Yeah, it is. Like, for example, if somebody jokingly even says that when I die, do this, and there'll be chaos because of that statement. Like, how can you even think about dying and all of that, right?
Right,
We celebrate life. We have so many functions. We are just celebrating all the time. So death is not something that we focus on. And
right.
like you can see how much of rules and restrictions come with death, right? After you die, there's just so much.
Yeah.
But I think as a spiritual concept, we really, I mean, we talk about it from a spiritual angle, but it's a very close-knit group that we can discuss it with. But in the family setting or things like that, it's not a conversation that we have. Yeah.
Mm. What impact do you feel that has on the fact that it's not talked about? Does it make the whole grieving process that much more difficult?
For sure. I feel it's also because we as humans are not equipped with how to deal with emotions, and at that too with grief, which is something that we hardly see also getting represented on, right? By our parents, by family, but even on TV, we don't see that. So I'll give you a very, again, a quick example of how my nanny started to cry. Like she was, again, the only way she could feel her emotions were through crying, and she was not just crying after the death, she was also crying before the death. When when my nanaji went to the hospital, she was just crying, and all my relatives and all the people around her were shouting at her in a way that don't cry because it's going to maybe manifest the death in a way,
Right,
because you
yeah.
are already mourning, which is
Mm.
so not the case, right? Like I am a spiritual being, and I know that we have come here because of a reason, and we are going to go away because it's done. We are done with this life, and it's
Mm.
on us. It's not, nobody else can manifest my death,
Yeah.
right? It's me and God who have the contract. And anyway,
Mm.
so the way she was dictate, like she was told in a way that this is how you need to be, even in
Right.
the grieving period, is insane to me. She has
Mm.
been the best person for my Nanaji, and my Nanaji could never see her. Of course, he could never see her crying, but now that she has lost everything, everything
Mm.
in a way, and Nanaji was everything to her. She was not even able to cry, and even now when she cries, like everybody just panics, and they're like, "You're going to." I mean, there was one conversation around, if you cry, then I'll also die. Like some relative said that to her. Like it's so intense. Like she was not able to
Mm.
cry. And what will happen if you're not crying? If you're not, letting your emotions out, and that is what crying does, right? You're
Mm.
really letting your emotions out.
Yeah.
You're going to grieve internally, and You don't know how to grieve even. So all that is good. I feel like her diabetes has become worse because she's not been able to grieve
Yeah.
properly the way she
Yeah.
wants. And her health has, just gone worse because of that.
Yeah. And the thing is grief can be quite a lonely experience. And it's kind of almost emphasized even more if you're told, no, you mustn't cry, you can't cry.
Yeah.
Um,
Same is the case with laughing, right? Like, how can you laugh? There's a death in the family. It goes both ways,
right,
actually.
right, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes we grieve, but we remember some conversation about the person, about that, about with
Mm,
what we had with that person, and we start to laugh, and that is also grieving because you're
mm,
remembering, and we all have our unique ways to grieve. But then that is also not allowed, because how can you laugh? How can you be joyful in a moment that is so sad? So you're
mm,
not allowing us to be sad, and you are also not allowing us to remember the good times. So what are we
right.
supposed to do? There are so many rule books, but there is
Mm,
no, I mean, there's nothing there for actual representation of what grieving is. And I think that's why we struggle so much. Not
mm,
just when we have lost somebody in the, like, from the physical plane, but also like breakups. They are so sad. And people have just again rule books about breakups, and we are actually losing people from our lives. That's also grieving. But
mm,
even there they have again representations that are very weird, like just start to sleep around with anybody, and that's how you grieve the relationship. Or just be sad and watch depressing movies and whatnot. Like this,
mm,
again, like we put our own versions of how this needs to be on
right.
people, but that's not how emotions work, right? I can be
Mm,
very happy in one moment even when I'm grieving, and I can be very sad even when I'm grieving
mm,
in the other moment. And that's, I mean, I'm allowed to be whatever I am, however I
mm.
am with my emotions.
Is there a change within, or a sense of that a change is needed or wanted? Like particularly the younger generation of actually, are they now beginning to question why we do these things and what benefit it has to doing these rituals in a particular way? Or do you think it is just so ingrained it will be generations yet before it changes?
I love this question because this is the question that I have been asking my family. And not to, again, I can go to so many different tangents with this answer, because as a woman, even though I'm a very empowered woman, all these rituals were taken place not in my family. So technically not in my family, right?
Mm,
Like it's my
mm,
mother's father's family.
yeah.
So I could not even question a lot of things, because when I started to question, they would shut me down. And also because the way my nani was reacting, because she wanted really to, because she was very fearful that if she does not follow any rituals, that my Nanaji's soul would be affected.
Right.
So I could not say a lot of things, because she was anyway, like when she was crying, people were actually saying that she shouldn't cry and all of that. And I didn't want to put more pressure on her that this is
Mm,
wrong, this is right, and whatever. But we've
mm,
been in discussions in my family with my father, with my mother, and sometimes they hear, sometimes they listen, and sometimes they say that you don't even know what it is. Like you don't have the, but I also feel like they also don't know. So it's like
mm,
pass, all these things have been passed down generations after generations, and it's been kept to the priest class, which dictate how we need to be. And there's also so much fear about, if I don't, like for example, god forbid something like this happens in my family, in, I mean, it happened in my family, but to my parents, and it is going to happen, it's the rule of life, right?
mm.
I don't want to be, like, I don't know what happens after death, right? So
Yeah,
I'm not
nobody
sure
does.
what happens. So if the
Mm,
priest is saying somebody who's, and again, a priest who's a male always, there's no female priest here at least. So if he's saying something and he's telling me that in this book this is written, and I have not read the book, no worries, and I have not read the book, I am going to assume, and especially because I'm also grieving in that moment, I'm going to assume that whatever he's saying is right because I don't have the capacity to actually go and read the book then. So what I am trying to do is that I'm starting to read the scriptures myself because that will give me, I don't have read a lot, so that's why I can't comment on what exactly it says, but I am starting to open my eyes because earlier I was like, I'm not religious, I'm just spiritual. But then when it comes to death, when it comes to marriage, you realize that even if you are spiritual, there are so many things that you need to follow which are religious based. And so I'm trying to read all those texts myself so that ultimately
Wow.
when I question with an evidence and
Mm,
I just don't follow something blindly.
mm,
But yeah, I think the greatest tool that we have is knowledge, right?
yeah, definitely.
If I
Yeah.
am equipping myself with the right knowledge, I can actually then question and counter all these things.
Mm,
But I think in the moment, because we have not allowed ourselves to go through that process earlier, where we have not talked about death, we have not even thought about that death, because the moment we keep thinking, like I said, God forbid if something like this happens to my,
mm,
it's that thing, right? There's so many emotions that bubble up that I don't want to go into that path.
mm,
And if I'm not thinking about it earlier, then I have to think about it in the moment. And in the moment, I don't have capacity to think about it.
yes.
I'm going to go with the flow, whatever the priest is saying. So I think I don't see a lot of change, to be honest. But what I
Mm,
do see is these conversations starting to bubble up
mm,
because my father also started to speak about certain things. We had the discussion. My brother was also asking certain questions. My sister was involved. So we, at least in our family, we are having these questions about
mm.
why do my nanny has to follow these rules when she is sick, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Why do my mama ji has to follow these rules? Because he is also somebody who has cholesterol and high BP and all of these things. And when he follows this strict diet, he's getting impacted. So we are
Mm,
starting to question. I understand the liberation of the soul, but in a way, my analogy, soul is already liberated because he's not with us anymore. But
mm,
what about the people who are here?
mm,
What are we doing for them? So all these
mm,
questions have started to bubble up. I'm not sure how pervasive it is in the in Hindu community, but at least in my family, we've started to question. And I think
mm.
the more we question, the more better questions we'll ask, and hopefully one day we'll also have the capacity to question the priest class when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to you today, and I know that I could spend the rest of the day listening to you. And I really appreciate the time that you've given to have this conversation and to share the different rituals and how it all works. Because I think also in the world we can be a bit ignorant to what other cultures do, and I think that ignorance, that not knowing, can often create the fear, which then creates the
Really.
disparity. And I think the more we understand each other, the better the world would
Yeah.
be. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing what you have today. It's been really fascinating and insightful, and I might end up having to have you back as a guest again to discuss it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, in the beginning, I said I'm not the expert in this field. I'm just sharing what I have faced, what I've experienced. And especially, I think if you were to call me for this podcast, for this conversation last year, I would not have anything to talk about because this
Right.
was the first. My father's parents um, uh, passed away when I was very young. So I had no idea what happened. This
Yeah.
is the first death that I experienced and I witnessed, and I'm able to answer only through this experience. I have,
Yes.
like I said, I've just started to read the scriptures also. So I would love to come back when I have completed reading that, so that
Brilliant.
maybe I'll have more actual insights into these what the scriptures also say. Why do we have a 1 year mourning period? Because I only know what the priest have told me
Mm,
or the elders have told me, right? But I could maybe answer why exactly this happens and do I even agree with it or not? Because right now I'm just questioning based on my logical mind and questioning
yeah.
based on what I have experienced. And I love the fact that you said that having these conversations actually allow you to understand the other person. And when we start to understand each other, this illusion of we
Mm,
are different starts to fall down, because I'm pretty sure,
exactly.
like we had a discussion earlier, that there's so many things that you also do in the UK that are some things that you also don't agree with, and there's so many rituals and
Mm,
traditions you follow.
mm.
So that allows us to the misfits to come to
Yeah.
probably and talk about, yeah.
I'm definitely a misfit.
Talked about why because there is also like, why do you always have the problem? Like there are so many people who they are not questioning anything. Why do you have a problem? I'm like, this is who I am.
Mm,
And beautifully, I think the culture that I am part of, all are, I mean, the scriptures that I have read, those are all question based. We are all questioning. So for example,
mm,
Gita, in Gita, we are always questioning the God, like the supreme God, Krishna. We are
mm.
always questioning him, because that's who we are. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to say that, like, all these questions that I have, and if you are from the Hindu community, I would love to know your insights. And I'm sure that more and more people are going to join these conversations, because what you are providing here is a very unique and yet so important conversation. Because
Yeah.
the more we talk about death, I feel like the more we'll be able to live freely.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
We are so
exactly
scared
that.
of death. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a poetry book that I wrote, and there was one sentence that I wrote, there is, life is death waiting to happen.
Mm,
So the more we
yeah.
talk about death, the more we'll be able to live more freely.
Yes,
Thank
Ishani.
you
Yes.
so
I love that quote. Will you send that to me? Because that's such a brilliant quote. I love it.
much. Yeah, sure.
That's great.
All right. Thank you for
Thank you
having me.
so much. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Bushell, and you have been watching Let's Chat Death, Dying, Funerals, and Grief. Until next time, take care and see you soon.
Bye. Namaste.